The first thing anyone noticed was how cold her hands were as she held the phone, like she'd been gripping it not just against the winter air but against years of fear. The bank lobby was quiet in that uncomfortable way. Money makes places quiet. All polished marble and soft music meant to calm people who never worried about tomorrow. She stood there anyway, worn coat, tired eyes, and a voice so gentle it almost disappeared when she said, "I just want to see my balance." A few people glanced over. One man didn't just glance. He laughed. He was impossible to miss. Expensive suit, confident posture, the kind of smile that came from never being told no. Everyone knew him, or at least knew of him. A local millionaire, self-made, often talked about in business magazines, and whispered about in cafes. He had been joking loudly with the bank manager moments before, the sound of his laughter bouncing off the walls. When he heard her soft request, something about it amused him. Maybe it was the contrast. Maybe it was the way she looked like she didn't belong in a place built for people like him. His laugh wasn't cruel at first, just careless, but it carried far enough to make her shoulders tense. She pretended not to hear, focusing on the counter in front of her. Her life had taught her that reacting only made things worse. She had learned to keep her head down years ago, back when dreams still felt dangerous. The teller smiled politely and asked for her card. Her hands shook slightly as she passed it over. She hated that they shook. She hated that something so small could feel so heavy. The millionaire leaned closer, curiosity replacing amusement. He watched as the teller typed, watched as the woman held her breath like she was waiting for a verdict. He smirked and said something under his breath to the manager, a joke about small balances and wasted time. The manager chuckled politely. This was a world where laughter often came at someone else's expense. Her mind drifted while she waited. She thought about the first time she'd ever opened a bank account, decades ago, when hope still felt new. She had been young then, full of plans, standing beside a man who promised her the world. He had smiled like promises were easy. For a while, life felt like it might actually work out. They worked hard, saved what little they could, dreamed of opening a small business, dreamed of a house that didn't leak when it rained. Then reality arrived, slowly, and then all at once. The business failed. Medical bills followed. Her husband's optimism faded into bitterness, then into silence. One day he left, leaving behind debts and a note that said he needed to find himself. She never saw him again. What she did see were overdue notices, eviction warnings, and a future shrinking with every passing year. She worked wherever she could, cleaning offices at night, washing dishes, caring for other people's children while her own grew up faster than she wanted. She learned how to stretch money, how to survive on less than enough. There were days she went to bed hungry so her children wouldn't have to. Days when she cried quietly in the bathroom so no one would hear. Through it all, she kept one habit. Every time she had even a little extra, she saved it. Not much. Sometimes just coins, sometimes a few bills tucked away like secrets. It wasn't about the amount. It was about control. About hope. Years passed, her children grew and left, carrying with them both gratitude and guilt. She told them she was fine, always fine. They had their own lives to build. She didn't want to be another burden. The savings continued, slow and steady, untouched. She never checked the balance. She was afraid of disappointment, afraid it wouldn't be enough to matter. Back in the bank, the teller's eyes widened, just a fraction. It was so small no one would have noticed if they weren't looking closely. The millionaire noticed. His smile faltered, curiosity sharpening into interest. The teller blinked, checked the screen again, then looked up at the woman with a different kind of respect. The silence stretched. It was the kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable, the kind that demands attention. The millionaire leaned forward, his laughter gone now. He wanted to see what had caused that look. The teller turned the screen slightly toward the woman. Her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't understand the numbers. They felt unreal, like reading a language she didn't know. Her eyes filled, not with sadness, but with something that felt dangerously like relief. She whispered, "Is that mine?" The teller nodded. "Yes, ma'am. That's your balance." The millionaire's eyes followed her gaze to the screen. The color drained from his face. The number staring back at him wasn't small. It wasn't modest. It was staggering. More than he expected. More than most people in that lobby would ever see. The laugh that had once come so easily now felt stuck in his throat. She covered her mouth with one hand, tears slipping free despite her efforts to hold them back. She wasn't crying because of the money itself. She was crying because of what it represented. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment she chose discipline over despair. It was proof that her quiet perseverance had meant something. The millionaire straightened slowly, embarrassment washing over him in waves. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. He remembered his own beginnings, long forgotten. The early days, when he'd been broke, when people had looked past him to... Somewhere along the way, success had hardened him, made him careless with his empathy. The manager cleared his throat, suddenly eager to shift the mood. The millionaire didn't hear him. His eyes stayed on the woman, now smiling through tears, thanking the teller again and again like she was afraid the moment might disappear. As she turned to leave, the millionaire stepped forward. The words came out before he could stop them. He apologized. It wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was raw, awkward, and real. He admitted he had laughed, admitted he'd judged without knowing a thing about her story. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a powerful man but a flawed one. She nodded gently. "We all have our moments," she said, her voice steady now. "What matters is what we learn from them." Those words stayed with him long after she left the bank. In the days that followed, he couldn't stop thinking about her, about the quiet strength it must have taken to build something so significant without anyone noticing. He started paying attention to the people he used to ignore. The servers, the cleaners, the faces that blended into the background of his comfortable life. He began to wonder how many stories he'd laughed at without ever listening. Weeks later, he made a decision. He started a small foundation, not with grand announcements or flashy events, but with a simple mission, to help people who worked hard in silence. People who didn't ask for attention, only opportunity. He funded education, small businesses, emergency support. He remembered her words whenever doubt crept in. As for her, life didn't suddenly become perfect. Money didn't erase loneliness or rewrite the past, but it gave her freedom. Freedom to breathe, to help her children without sacrificing herself, to donate quietly to causes she cared about. She never sought recognition. She knew the value of quiet victories. Sometimes she thought back to that moment in the bank, to the laugh that had stung and the screen that had changed everything. She realized something important. Kindness and judgment are both choices. One builds walls, the other builds bridges. And so, if there's one thing this story leaves us with, it's this. Never underestimate the power of quiet perseverance. Never judge a life by a single moment or appearance. And never forget that kindness, once chosen, has the power to transform not just others, but ourselves. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Talks. Because every story shared with kindness makes the world just a little warmer. And you never know who might need to hear it today.